Now, while the modern-day superstars like John Wayne Parr, Paul Slewinski or Nathan Corbett are enjoying the glory years of their career, they are no doubt humbled, almost overshadowed by those that have walked the steps before them, men like Slammin' Sammy Greco.
When you think of iconic Melbourne landmarks, you think of the MCG, the Victoria Market, and just around the corner from the Victoria Market, Don Camillo's, owned by one of the greats. And when I say greats, I'm talking what Gary Ablett has been to the AFL, what Wally Lewis is to rugby, Sam Greco is to kickboxing and has been one of the greats of the sport. Well, Sam, thanks for having us in here. This beautiful restaurant. I've enjoyed many a great meal here. I suppose for the viewers at home, you and I have known each other a long time, but for the viewers at home, just tell everyone, I suppose, where it all began.
Oh God, Mark, you're making me feel old here. Yeah, look, it began about 35 years ago for me. In Brunswick, that's where I grew up, a rough and tough area. Basically, have to hold your own over there. And I come from a family, a very tough, traditional family. Violence wasn't accepted in our family, believe it or not. Even though growing up in Brunswick, I said you had to hold your own. That's exactly what you had to do. And if you were confronted by trouble, there was two ways out. You know, you'd either talk your way out, which was very rare, or hands up, head down, and let's go. You know, and that's unfortunately, you know, I swung him as a kid. I managed to get the better of most of them, thank God. But still, I couldn't talk about it when I got home because if I ever went home with a black eye, my dad promised me a second one. Yeah. So typical European parents.
Tough love.
Yeah.
Of course, we talk about the traditional aspect of your training, and that's where I suppose we first met. Kyokushin karate, full contact, bare knuckle, hard as you like, as they say, the hardest style of karate. How did you fit into that picture?
I absolutely fit in like, you know, the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle, bang, straight in. Yeah. I found it niche, I found it home for me. I was at school at the time and you know, for me that form of competition was a release and I've always had a competitive streak through me. And I never competed to come second, I always competed to come first. But I knew, as I said before, it was a lot of hard work and I knew that if I worked hard today, it'd be easier tomorrow for me.
Yeah.
And I made myself successful.
Moving from the karate to the ring sports, and you know you've done MMA before it was popular, before people were running around with tap out tops on. Sam was fighting MMA, so that's how far back that goes.
Yeah, it wasn't. It made me feel old. At the time, while K1 was still floating around being, you know, the top level of fighting, there was a company called Pride. Yep. Pride was the mixture of what we say the UFC, but in the ring, yep. And which was absolutely brutal. Pride was brutal. If you think the UFC is tough now, you should have seen the Pride fights before. You know, when they first started, there was no time limits. Yep. So basically, guys could do anything.
Kickboxing, the K1, it doesn't get any bigger than that. You know, really, we talk about glory and we talk about these events these days, but K1, it really was the behemoth of an event. And for people who are watching this, I suppose you'd have to take a trip to Japan during one of these events to realise the rock star-like status that was around Sam in the heyday. You'd walk into a restaurant, there'd be no one out the front, you'd leave, there'd be 200 or 300 people waiting out the front and you'd have to be, you know, escorted out. It was absolutely unbelievable. Tell us a little bit about that sort of feeling and being, you know, the Brad Pitt of kickboxing.
Yeah. Look, Mark, and I've got to say for those viewers out there, I've got to say this, you know, everyone loves stardom. You know, don't say you don't. I mean, I know everyone does to some degree. I was very fortunate enough to be part of K1. It's the biggest kickboxing organisation in the world. And I was fortunate enough to live there and live the high life. And when I say high life, I'm talking about, you know, not even carrying your own bags to training, people carrying them there for you. Being driven to places, having your own drivers, having your own security, having your own entourage of people. being given everything, being given an apartment, hotel room, whatever it may be. There wasn't anything in Japan that I asked for that I couldn't get. It was amazing. They made you feel like an absolute king. But from match to match or fight to fight, you had to back it up.
Yeah.
You know, they were prepared. The Japanese were prepared to make you feel like the Brad Pitt of the world if you wanted to. But on the same token, you had to be winning and you had to be a marketable product. Some of my best fights in my earlier days.
Yeah.
My second fight in Japan was against Peter Wirtz, the reigning world champion.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know who Peter Wirtz was until I stepped in the ring. You know, found out he's a world champion. But hey, you know, I had nothing to lose, everything to gain. And that fight there, you know, I went the distance with Peter Wirtz. People had written me off because of the fact that I'd come from a karate background with no kickboxing experience.
Yeah.
But I took Peter to the distance, you know, with no experience. Peter dropped me with body shots, you know, second and third round. But what made me famous that day was when I got back on my feet and I kept punching on.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't going to be defeated.
Yeah.
I knew who I was and what I was worth. And that fight stipulated and made me, believe it or not.
Overseas career highlights, toughest opponents, fondest memories, best battles, if you had to sum it up.
Well, look, toughest opponents, you know, I often get asked this question. Toughest opponents, I'd like to say everyone's been a tough opponent to a certain degree. Everyone has, you know, their strengths and weaknesses. But if I've got to be put on the spot and pick a few, my toughest opponent would have to be my great friend Andy Hug would be one of them.
Yep.
You know, Andy Hug and I we trained together non-stop. But when we stepped in that ring, we're like, you know, two beasts, you know, fighting it out against each other.
People who haven't been around the sport for a long time or even partaken in any training, they'd go, what is wrong with you guys? You know, you're friends. And we've travelled on the K1 bus together. And the one thing that blew me away was all these guys travel to the venue together on the same bus, get on the same, after they fight each other, get back on that same bus, travel back to the hotel. And one of the fondest memories for me is sitting on the bus with everyone, and you and Ernesto Hoost and a few other guys, they had the video of the fights from that night playing. And you're like, I got you with that shot, yeah, but I got you with that kick. You know, there was the banter and there was a real camaraderie there between these legends of the sport. It was mind-blowing.
We were professionals, in and out of the ring. We weren't the type of guys that, you know, hey, what are you looking at before the fight and even after the fight. We knew that it was business once we stepped in that ring.
Yeah.
That ring was our office,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't let anyone dictate, regardless of whether you were a friend. Outside the ring, hey, let's eat together, let's drink together, let's have fun, let's party, let's do whatever you want, let's train together. But come the day, bang, you stepped in that ring, you automatically become my opponent, not my friend.
Yeah.
But there was that sense of professionalism between us, and we knew how to handle that. And that's what people loved, month in, month out.
Yeah.
Fight in, fight out. I wouldn't fight you once, I'd fight you probably twice, three times in my whole career.
It was a true circuit.
But it was a true circuit, exactly right. And there was some big dollars in those days.
Yeah.
It was big dollars for us. It was the biggest circuit in the world.
Big dollars for the guys at home
Look,
watching?
you know, for the Grand Prix, you know, you're probably looking at close to $500,000. But, you know, saying that too, it wasn't just the prize money. Where the greatness was all the endorsements that came with it.
Yeah.
You know, there wouldn't be $500,000, there'd be millions of dollars coming in from endorsements if you scored an endorsement. So that's why it was so important, you know, winning and how you win, you know, but you had to be a marketable product. And this is one of the things that I talk about all the time about being a marketable product, not just a great fighter.
Now, your record, so through all of this, how many fights? Let's not include let's not include those Brunswick stousers, or maybe it would be more interesting to put them in.
Well, I'll be honest with you, you know, including all my full contact karate fights, MMA fights, you know, and kickboxing fights. There's 147 fights with 131 wins. Each and every one of those has been a life learning experience, and I'm proud of the whole lot of them.
Well, Sam, as expected, you've delivered with some great insights, but next week we're really going to dig deep and we're going to talk about your rivalry with one of the greats of the era and something that everyone was talking about in the kickboxing community, your rivalry with Stan the Man Longanides. So we want to hear all about that next week, but thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Sammy Greco, what a beast, but what a gentleman.
Oh, and a gentleman indeed, and a real icon of the sport, a legend from way back. I remember training in Kyokushin and hearing about the mythical beast that was Sammy Greco, and then seeing him in tournaments, K1 karate, the movies. He's done it all, and I look forward to seeing a lot more of Sam.
And you will see a lot more of Sam Greco, because part 2 of our feature story on the legend, that is next week. Hope you've enjoyed this week. We've run out of time. Hammer time next Wednesday night. We'll see you then.